The Minding Your Business podcast. Today is Friday, September the 14th, 2018. Thank you so much for joining the Minding Your Business podcast hosted by me, Champ Ron. It's brought to you every week by Brooks Brothers Consulting. Brooks Brothers Consulting was started with my now newlywed brother, Philip. Congratulations again to him. A couple weekends ago, we had his wedding here in Tennessee, and so him and his beautiful bride are doing quite well, and that's great to see. Got a chance to even hang out at the fair, the Delta Fair on last week, so that was cool. But he and I started Brooks Brothers Consulting back in 2013. We are a leadership and business development firm that works with small business owners and financial institutions to help coach manager level, director level, and executive level talent, help formulate executable business strategy planning, and provide access to alternative lending with our network of private lenders around the country. If you're a new and existing leader in your company and you're seeking to acquire an asset such as real estate, equipment, commercial vehicles, or you need a line of credit to boost cash flow, you need to give us a call, 901-808-3801. That's 901-808-3801, or you need to visit us at www.brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Again, it's Friday. It's September the 14th. It's payday for some of you folks, but today's topic is going to resonate with everybody. Everybody's going to resonate with this one. So if you've got young people, teenagers, young people in their 20s, that kind of thing, you need to make sure they get to this particular podcast, because I'm going to share some real life, true blue information today with today's subject. But first, kick in the music.
What we do here is go back.
All right. Thank y'all so much for joining on today, the Minding Your Business podcast. Listen, had a great episode last couple weeks with some great guests, Dr. Teresa Woodward, Allison Tibbs, Shay Brown. I mean, we've had just a nice run, man, with guests, and I'm definitely appreciative of all of that. And today's subject is going to be something that's going to be a little touchy for some folks. Because a lot of people are going through this now. They may just be coming out of it. And unfortunately for some, they may be headed towards it, maybe the rest of 2018, going into 2019. And that is career transition, whether that's from career within a job function or career within your business. And what I'm going to share today are 10, or what I consider my top 10 tips for transitioning properly and transition effectively and transition efficiently. And we all are going to face that at some point, which is a career transition. Very few of us get the opportunity to remain in the same career field throughout our entire working life, whether that's with the business. Very few of us have a business that we get when we're very young and you keep it all the way to retirement. And certainly very few of us work jobs, unlike in the past where people would work a job and you'd work there 25, 30, 35, 40 years. And then all of a sudden you retire and they give you the proverbial golden watch and you go on to the house and you live a few more years, and then that's kind of it. What's up, Scott Kenny? What's up, Jason Daniels? What's going on? How y'all doing, man? I didn't mean even to be suited up today. For those on Facebook Live, yeah, I was suited up today. I just had a really important meeting with some folks that came in town to meet with me, and I'll talk about that a little later. But career transitions is our subject today. And so many of you have been impacted with this. Many of you are facing this. And so here are kind of my top 10 career transition tips or feedback or best practices, however you want to look at it. I've broken this down and I've taken many of the things that I've learned personally, many of the things that I've gathered as a hiring manager, many of the things that I've had in working with recruiters and HR representatives and talking with people that have been in transition, that have been out of work. No matter how you get to that point, I've consolidated that into these top 10. So number one, career transition or business transition, and we're talking of these, not necessarily mutually exclusive because they have a lot of similarities. What's up, Ojinga Carr? Thank you so much for joining. But there's a lot of similarities between the work career transition and the business career transition. Okay, so number one is you've got to recognize, okay, that it is a high contact sport. Okay. High contact sport, that terminology is normally associated with the sport of football, right? From a physicality standpoint, that there's a lot of tackling, a lot of movement, a lot of colliding of bodies in the sport of football. I know that because sometimes I feel it from my days. But so the sport of football is considered a high contact sport. So is career transition or any kind of job search. Let me start this off by saying, too, that nobody that I've ever heard has ever enjoyed the job search. No matter how you get there, whether you're laid off, whether your business doesn't succeed for a myriad of reasons, whether you're fired for something you did, something you didn't do, whatever that is, or you're just released, the business goes, go under, your business goes under. However you get to that point, nobody enjoys it. It's not a warm and fuzzy feeling. And you all that are listening to this podcast or checking me out on Facebook Live or wherever you're looking at or listening to the podcast, because nobody really enjoys this process. However, many of us have or will find yourself in this position. So number one, it's a high contact sport, not in the physical sense like I mentioned in football. In any kind of transition of your business or in your job, you've got to be active. Active doing what? Building relationships. One of the things that I see now as we've evolved, and Ojinga can speak to this as a high performance coach and as an HR representative, that what you see nowadays is because of the advent of the internet and online technology and how many companies have gone to the online process for engaging a job or role opportunity, many people over the years have kind of fallen into this lull of, I'm just going to go online. I'm going to find a position at a company. I'm going to go online. I'm going to fill out their application. And I'm going to get the email that says, thank you, Champeron, for applying for this position. If your skills and background are a match for this position, we are going to call you. BS. And look out, and we thank you for applying with fill in the blank company, right? And all of y'all are familiar with that. And so you sit down in your pajamas at the house or at the apartment or at the condo or at your mom's house or wherever you happen to be, and you fill out application after application online, right? And you just go from screen to screen, and you get email to email, and you do that all day long. You take a break to go use the bathroom and pop you some popcorn and walk the dog, and then you come right back. You talk on the phone a little bit, and then you come right back, and you jump back online. And you do that Monday, and you do that Tuesday, and you do that Wednesday, and you do that Thursday, and you get to Friday, you do it a little bit. You wake up Saturday in a cold sweat because nobody's called you back all week, and you jump up to see if anything new's come up. And then on Sunday, regardless of what you do on Sunday morning, you jump up and you look at it, and then you come back in the afternoon and you're looking at it again, and you're in this rut of just applying online. And so you do that 1,000 times, right? And along the way, you get a few emails that say something along the lines of, Champeron, we've reviewed your application, and we've decided to go with another candidate that best fits our needs. Or simply something along the lines of simply, we're moving forward, and it's going to be without you. And you get that email and you cuss and you get upset. You start blaming yourself. You get all down. And this is the typical job search now for people in 2018. That's all they do. They fill out one resume, they attach it to an application, and they send it out. And they scour Indeed.com and they scour Monster.com. It's the same in business, right? They're transitioning from their business, and so what do? They get on social media, right? Or they avoid social media if they're ashamed. People do that now. They only share their wins on social media, and their L's or even perceived L's. They keep that. That's none of your business. Your successes are everybody's business, but then your L's are nobody's business, right? So even in business, when people are transitioning, it's a high contact sport. So if you've been in one industry and you're looking to get into another industry, same in the job function, you can't just apply online. That's number one. You cannot just sit and apply online and thinking you're going to get there, not within any reasonable time frame. Unless you're okay and you're looking to take a several month or even several years sabbatical. If you're just going to wait for somebody to call you from an online application, you're going to be disappointed. So, minding your business, folks. You got to create this into a high contact sport. What is contacts? You've got to be building relationships. What are relationships? Right? You're creating a two-lane road between you and another person. Not just simply for your benefit. That's the other piece of it. It's not just about applying online. It's not just about trying to connect with people who can give something to you. That's a one-way street. And that's what happens with a lot of people. A lot of people, and I'll talk about this in one of the later points that I'm going to make, is you've got to build a bi-directional relationship. You've got to give value as well. The challenge with the job search or the business search, whatever it is when there's an impact in your income and you get so focused on bills and you get focused on your material possessions, right? And again, that's an easy thing to do, right? Because your life is impacted. The folks, with your car note, they're calling, they're writing letters. Your mortgage or rent people are calling and writing letters. They're stopping by. You're looking in the pantry and you don't have quite the food stock that you used to have. You're looking in the refrigerator like, damn, the freezer, right? So, you're doing all these things. Maybe you're having to help with, other family members and things like that. You've got family members that are also maybe in transition. You got trifling family members that are always looking for you for something. And all the way around, right? And so you've got to turn your search into a high contact sport, which means you've got to be reaching out. And if you're looking to transition from one industry to another, you've got to, and I'll get to this again in another point, but you've got to be building relationships in that industry, in that field. Your relationships in your current field may not be quite as relevant. Some of them may be, but they may not be quite as relevant. So that's where it really comes into play. So you've got to create it into a high contact sport. You've got to be building relationships. And you've got to do that in the field or the industry that you want to be in. Or if you're looking to stay in the industry, you've got to continue to build relationships. Period. You can't just sit online. You've got to be talking to recruiters. You got to go to industry functions, which means you got to get out of your comfort zone. And listen, I know when you've been out of work, you don't have the income or your business is not there, and you don't have, it's difficult to just say you're going to ride all around town. Particularly for those here in Memphis and many cities where it's very spread out geographically. It's difficult riding all over town, burning up gas to go to these different functions. Some of them have costs that you have to pay in order to gain access and things like that. But you got to look at what's most important. And the way that listen, I don't have the stats right here, so don't quote me on this, but in research in the past, only about 40% of jobs are posted on things like Indeed.com and Monster and all that. So that means 60% of employment is about positions that you don't see. That you won't see with the Indeed search, you won't see with LinkedIn searches, you won't see all of this, right? You're not. So if you're going to rely on just 40% of the positions that are posted, that means you're missing the other 60%. The other 60% come with relationships. And I hear people say this in Memphis all the time. It burns me up. They may say it in your city too, but, well, you got to know somebody. Hell, you got to know somebody everywhere. If you're going to have a business, don't you have to know customers? Right? There's no business or job where you don't have to know nobody unless you're fine making $7 an hour. You don't have to know nobody to make $6, $7, $8 an hour. But if you're trying to advance, and that's fine, if that's what you do, you don't necessarily have to know people for that. But if you're going to go on to that next level, listen, yes, you have to know people. You got to know people in Memphis. You got to know people in New York. You got to know people in Seattle. You're not going to go to Dallas, Texas, and they just go let me in because, yeah, they'll have more opportunities maybe compared to Memphis, Tennessee, possibly, depending on your field. But you're still going to have to build relationships. You're still going to have to do that. There's no getting around that. And you got to build relationships outside of your current scope, which that's a challenge for many people, is getting outside of what they're comfortable with, their comfort zone. So you got to go to that network meeting where you may not know anybody there. You still got to come prepared with information on yourself and your elevator pitch, which we'll talk about in a complete another podcast. You can listen to The Startup Life with Dominic Lawson. He did a really good episode on your elevator pitch some episodes back. So make sure you check that out because he has a great episode to help you with your elevator pitch. And he gives a personal testimony to how he was able to do that. Him and his wife, Kenda, with Owls LLC. They were able to do that. So make sure you check that out. But you got to have your elevator pitch, your business card, or your resume. All that's got to be ready. And you got to be prepared to tell how you're going to help somebody else solve problems. And that's what the whole thing's about, whether it's your business, whether it is your work career. You've got to focus in on how you solve problems for who? For you? No. For them. Them being whoever it is that you're trying to do business with or whoever you're trying to work for. And listen, on the Minding Your Business podcast, we don't do the whole shame people who work a job. Because ask any business owner, I challenge any business owner to say, you know what, we're going to put out an advertisement that says we don't want anybody's money who had to go to a job to work for it to earn it. And see how long they stay in business. Right? You never hear a business owner say that. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with you working a job. That's part of the balance that you need in any kind of economy, right? Is you need a working force and then you need entrepreneurs. And if everybody's doing one or the other, it throws things out of balance. So you have to have a balance of the two. So let go of your fear and your hatred of one versus the other and pitting them against each other, because that's not what we're going to do on this particular podcast ever. They work in conjunction. They work in sync. I mean, even the business owner, they'll talk about people working a job and then have people working for them. You're like, okay, which one? You go let go of all your employees and tell them to go start the same business you're in? I doubt that. So number one was a high contact sport. Number two, you've got to tie your experiences to job requirements. Same with your business. If you're transitioning from one business industry to another, you've got to be able to understand what your experiences and your skill sets are and how they transition to this next opportunity. So if you're going from banking to athletics, right? So let's just say you were in banking and now you're going into, you want to get into athletic administration. Well, there's some transferable skills that you have from banking in terms of working with, building relationships, understanding cash flow, understanding money flow, and those type of things, customer service, that transition into athletic administration, even though athletic administration may not be your specific background, right? So you've got to tie those in. What you cannot do, what you should not do, y'all, is you can't just read a position title and then just blast out your resume, right? Or you can't just read a title in a business and just, well, I'm going to go and buy that business, or I'm going to go and start that business because I see just a title. I see co-working, right? So I'm going to run open a co-working business, right? You've got to tie in. Does it tie into who you are and what skill sets that you have? And if you don't have the skills or the background, then you have to look at, going back to number one, is how do you network in that industry and build relationships so that you can acquire those skills? Ojinga Carr says you've got to approach your job as a partnership. That's part of being in the high contact sport. Exactly. That's part of building your relationship, is that partnership mentality. Bi-directional, two-lane street. Thank you, Ojinga. That's a great comment, man. It's got to be a two-way street. But don't just read. Some people do their job search because they see a certain title. They don't even read the job description because they're so motivated by, I've got to get money because I've got to get mama off my back. I got to get my husband off my back. I got to get my wife off my back. I've got to get my baby mama, my baby daddy, my boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is, whatever titles you've given to people. You've got to get them off your back. You're trying to maintain that relationship. And unfortunately for many people, money and finance can be a deterrent in relationships. And so what you can't do, though, is just be out applying for stuff that you don't even know the scope of the position or how you tie into it, because you're wasting a lot of time. And those are the things that drive, when I get into some of these other points of how HR over time has tried to fuel that out, because you get people that apply for stuff that they don't meet the minimum requirements. They don't have any kind of tie into that position. They just see a title and they think of a salary and they think, I want the money. And so they just apply. But you've got to look at the requirements of the opportunity. Same in your business. You got to look at, if you're looking to get into a new industry, you've got to look at the requirements of that business, the licensing requirements, the state and federal, local requirements, the code enforcement requirements, the expectations of the customer base. Who is the target customer? You've got to understand all these things. You can't just, it's foolish and unwise to just go after stuff just because you see a title. So number two is tie your experiences, what you have. And in most cases, many people have very good transferable skills and experiences that can go into a new industry. Number three, understand who will help you and who won't. This is another thing that people struggle with, y'all. You're going to have to develop, going back to number one, that is a high contact sport. The people that are going to help you the most are going to be those second level connections. For those of you that are familiar with LinkedIn, and I'll talk about that in a second, those second level connections is the people that you know who know people. That's that second level. The people that you know that are not necessarily family and may not always necessarily be considered friends, quote unquote, but the people that they know. Your family, right? And this, there's varying degrees of this, and it doesn't mean that no family is helpful and things like that. But you and your family tend to have the same connections. You tend to know the same people, right? So they're not going to be as quick to help. In some cases, now there's a myriad of other reasons why. Of hatred and jealousy, and some people like to see people down and all that kind of thing, even if they're your relatives. But family doesn't always mean bad. It's just that they don't know anybody or can think of people that they know outside of who y'all already know. So if all y'all know Bill and all y'all know Mary and all y'all know Jane and all y'all know Jack, then there's not a whole lot that they're going to be able to help you with. The people that are going to help you the most in your job search transition or in your business transition are going to be those second level connections. It's the people that you're familiar with. You may have some level of connectivity to. You may not talk every day. You may not always run in the same circles. You may not like each other's posts on social media all the time and things like that, but you're connected in some kind of way and you've crossed paths. Those are the folks that you need to go back to number one, the high contact sport. Those are the people you got to be in touch with, building bi-directional relationship where there's value being driven up and down the street between you. Not one-sided. All right. And it's their connections, who they know, because they're going to know a nice chunk of people that you don't, that your family and friends don't. Those are the connections that are going to help you. All right. So it's going to be that person who says, yes, Jack, I know so-and-so at fill in the blank company. As a matter of fact, send me your resume or give me your number, or I'll get their number and I'll link the two of you together. Right? Those are the people that tend to help you. Same in your business. It's the same thing. It's those second level connections, which leads me to number 4, which is you've got to utilize LinkedIn. And when you talk about connections, LinkedIn's got the first, second, and third level connections. And I can do another podcast on LinkedIn just on its own. But so in a few years, LinkedIn's going to become one of the premier. It's already one of the premier, but it's going to be the premier kind of source for the job search and in some cases for doing business. It's heavy into B2B. Microsoft acquired it a few years ago. You've got LinkedIn University that's got all kinds of free classes and things like that. So LinkedIn's a legit tool. Now, I know how some of y'all are with LinkedIn, that you can only post one picture or one video at a time. You can't troll people. No, people can see that you've been looking at somebody's profile. So it ain't like Facebook and Instagram where y'all can sit and troll y'all's exes and watch what everybody's doing and you can't stay too covert on LinkedIn. And yes, your boss probably is on LinkedIn. So although you've got privacy features and things like that, some of y'all don't like to be on there because you can't talk that crazy stuff on there, because not only your boss might be on there, but your coworkers as well. So I get all that, okay? Yeah, let's lay all the cards on the table. But in terms of your job search, your transition, things like that, it's a great tool for connecting. It's one of the few ways that you're going to connect with some of these recruiters. Because these HR professionals and recruiters are all over LinkedIn, because it's your digital resumes on there, and the chances of you telling a lot of lies is less than you do on these other social media sites, and even on your printed resume. So you've got to build up your LinkedIn profile. That cannot be done overnight, folks. All right. Building up your LinkedIn profile is going to take some time. You got to reach out, you got to connect, and you got to use that connection. When you do get somebody on LinkedIn, whether they look at your profile or they're on there, they're engaging you or you're engaging them, you've got to convert that back to number 1, which is a high contact sport. You've got to reach out to them, meet them for coffee, meet them for a light breakfast, things like that. And don't just go into, again, building a relationship. The reason a lot of people have these problems with relationships, personally and professionally, is because they think of it one-sided. They only go to people, and people only hear from them when they want something. And y'all know y'all don't like that yourselves. So why do you do that on your job search? And then some of you get a little timid about reaching out to people, because that's what you've been doing. You haven't really kept in tabs a relationship because you talk to the same people just all the time. You don't really expand your network. You've got to use LinkedIn to convert the digital presence into the human touch. And listen, you don't have to pay for LinkedIn. LinkedIn's free. So you don't need the premium service and all that kind of thing. You don't necessarily need it for that. There's maybe some other areas that it can be beneficial, but you don't have to. What you do have to do is you're going to have to build up your profile. It's got to be complete. Have a profile picture. Okay, and not one with you at the beach, or depending on what you're doing, or some selfie that you also have on Facebook. Get you a professional headshot for your LinkedIn, right? And you got to build it up, build up the profile, and you got to take time connecting. And if you're looking to transition to a different industry, business or your work career, then you've got to connect with people in that industry. Learn the lingo, learn the nuances, learn what a day in the life looks like. Reach out to people and just ask them. Yes, I know that you're short on money. Your bank account, you got $5 in it, and you got $2,000 worth of bills due, right? And you're trying to figure it all out. I get that. I promise I get that. If you listen to this podcast, I feel you. Everything I'm talking, is tough, when you're looking to put food on the table and you're looking to not worry so much about the bills, and you're looking to get that pressure off. I get that, y'all. However, you're not going to get to the next step. You're not going to get to where you're trying to be sitting worrying about that. And I'll get to that in my last point in terms of energy. But you got to use LinkedIn. You got to use the tools, okay? And LinkedIn is one of them. There are many others, but LinkedIn is one. Number 5, all right? You must understand yourself and what you want, okay? And like I was saying, you got to take some time as you're applying for jobs, as you're making these connections. What do you really want to do? One of the challenges in today's time is that people don't spend the time, in general, really learning themselves and what they want to do. They want to be what they see somebody else be, or what somebody else does. Or they're looking for something that's got low barriers to entry, that they can go and make a lot of money or enough money to handle whatever's on their back. And you've got to progress past that piece of it. You've got to understand yourself. What is it that you would really enjoy doing, that you want to do? It's not just about getting a job to pay bills. Yeah, that could be part of it. But take a time. Look at your bills. You talk to people that they get so caught up in all these material things. Do you need them? Look at what you really need. What are you actually using? Do you need your job because you're trying to buy every latest little fashion and have 2 closets full of clothes? You ain't wearing but one set at a time. Do you need, you only drive 1 car at a time. Do you need 3 and 4 cars that you pay an insurance on all this kind of thing? Do you need to eat at Ruth Chris 2-3 nights out the week? So you got to make some hard choices. Do you need all those purses, all those shoes, all those this and all those that? So sometimes it's a chance for you to reevaluate your situation and look at what's really important. And that's part of getting an understanding of yourself, folks. Okay? So that's number 5. Understand what it is that you want, and it's not just about paying bills. So that job, that business, it's got to be more than that. Okay? Number 6, it's tied to number 1 as a high contact sport. Number 6 is you've got to follow up. Okay? Most, people that are successful, right? It's not, like I say, it's not by accident. They follow up. They're in people's face without being a bugaboo or an asshole, but they're in people's face. And you've got to be. Whether you're in Memphis, that don't matter if you're in Memphis, New York, Miami, pick a city. I don't care how big it is or how robust or how much you see it on TV and you lust for it. You've got to follow up. As you make connections and you're offering value, you've got to follow up. How do you follow up? Whether it's with recruiters, whether it's within your business, handwritten notes go a long way, because in this digital age, people are so accustomed to receiving emails and all this electronic communication inboxes. Simply a handwritten card. You can get a pack of cards from Target for like $3, $4, $5. A pack of 40, 50 thank you cards, just blank with a little design on the front. Keep those. And when you're meeting people and you get a chance, if you got their address, you know where their office is, drop them off a nice thank you card, and maybe include a line that is common that you talked about. Like if you both enjoyed sports, or you're both University of Alabama fans, or whatever it is, jot a little line about that. You're building a relationship. You're trying to endear yourself, right? And you're trying to you're building on that connection. So that's number 6. You've got to follow up. When you talk to somebody, and they may not answer your first call back. So what? You got to follow up. It's high contact sport. They got to be hearing from you. So you got to follow. If you're not going to follow up, then all that front end work that you've done is nothing. Same in your business. You got to follow up. You're transitioning. You're looking to get out of the restaurant business. You're looking to get into fill in the blank. You've got to follow up with these connections, y'all. There's no way around it. Number 7 is you've got to understand your why. Why are you making this change to begin with? So as you're doing all these things, and the reason I didn't put that number one is you've got to get the actionable steps going. All right. Then as you're doing that, why are you making this transition? The why may be your hand was forced, right? You were laid off, you were terminated. The job function changed. The company went through a reorganization. Whatever that is, things change. This is a very dynamic environment that we're in. And it's tough for people because it changes swiftly. It's not like those times where, it remained fairly static. Now the environment changes swiftly. There's no loyalty in the game anymore. Companies aren't loyal to employees. Business environments aren't loyal to owners. Owners aren't loyal to the business environment. And workers aren't loyal to companies anymore. But you've got to understand your why. What's your true motivation? One of the things that I always look at in business is I always like to understand the other man or other woman's greed. I want to know what motivates them. I'm not the kind of guy. So for those that know me, I'm not the hype man. I'm way more. If you think of the group Public Enemy, I'm way more Chuck D than Flavor Flav. Both are needed for the group to be successful, right? But they both have different roles. Chuck D's role was different than Flavor Flav's role. But I'm way more Chuck D than Flavor Flav. So I'm not the hype man. That's not me. I'm the lyricist. I'm vetting. I'm looking at the process flow. Six Sigma. I'm looking at the process flow. All right? And how it connects. And I want to know the motivation. Because the motivation tells me a lot about the character. So it's the same when you're in a job interview. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. That's why you got to come prepared with their questions, because you want to know their motivation. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions about yours. You want to know theirs, right? You want to know what their motivation is to fill this position. Why? Where do they feel that you'll fit? And one of the questions I always ask, this is in business or in your career, you need to write this down, or you need to rewind this back and listen to it 100 times. You've got to ask the question of not only what's next, so your follow-up, but you've got to ask the question of, where do you see me solving problems for you? So at the end of the interview or end of it, you've got to ask the question, where do you see me solving problems for you? What that does is that puts the ball in the recruiter's hands. They've got the ball with the shot clock running down. Okay? And they have to make a move, right? So, again, where do you see me solving problems for you? That forces them to give you direct feedback on how you interviewed and how they view your experience and skill set. And it's going to tell you a lot. And so that all ties into what's your next step. But you've got to ask that question. And that's tied into their why. But first, you've got to understand your why. And if your why is only centered around money and paying bills and all that, you're missing the mark. You're a little too short-sighted. Those things are important. I'm not saying that they're not. But you're short-sighted if that's the sole motivation, is to get a job so I can pay bills. There's more to you than that. Come on now. There's more to you than starting a business just so I can post on Facebook and feel good about a few likes and a few comments and a few shares. It's bigger than that. It should be bigger than that. I'll say that. Don't limit yourself to that. Number 8, you've got to become, in most cities, here in Memphis you have them, and in many cities you've got career transition groups and business consulting groups, SCORE, and things like that. You've got to get involved in those things. It goes back to your networking. You've got to get involved in that. Why do you have to get involved in that? There are contacts in many of those groups. If you go in Google and you search career transition meetings or groups in your city or business transition, they're all over the place. Go to meetup.com. They're all over the place, y'all. You've got to get out and get involved in these things. Well, I don't have anybody to watch the baby. And I don't have any family here. Well, you've got to make a decision, and that's not easy. Again, what I'm saying is just as simple as that. I've got 3 young ones. I know what that is, y'all. I'm not sitting. It's one thing when you're single and the only ass you have to wipe is your own, right? And you just make decisions. It's a different thing when other people are counting on you, particularly other younger people that are more impressionable and not necessarily in a position to defend themselves, right? And they're counting on you. So I get that. Trust I get that. But you're going to have to make sometimes some tough choices. You've got to be creative. Now if you're sitting there and you've got a 2 or 3 year old that won't sit down and be quiet and things like that, and you can't take them to meetings, I get that. But you're going to have to work with them on that. Involve them in the process. Your 2 or 3 year old is extremely resilient. It's these old fogies that get stuck in their ways and can't adjust and get impacted by everything. Your 2 or 3 year old, it's a game. It's fun. They're always evolving. They don't know about being stuck in their ways. Hell, when you're 3, in what ways can you be stuck in? Involve them. Make it a game. Hey, if you come to this meeting and you act right, I want you to listen. I'm going to ask you a few questions afterwards with your, maybe not your 2 year old, 3 year old, but maybe your 5 year old, your 6 year old, your 7, 8, 9. Hey, I want to get your feedback on this. Share with me some things that you heard. Or what do you have questions on afterwards? Or, hey, why don't we go get a small ice cream cone afterwards? If, you be good with this, we'll go get a small ice cream cone and we'll talk about it. That involves them. They'll love to do that. But you got to be creative with these things. But you've got to attend these networking things and look for career transition groups. They're generally led by people that most of the time they're retired, and they're aimed to be very helpful. Remember, you're looking for those second level connections. People who know these people that you're trying to connect with on LinkedIn, and that when you're applying for these jobs and you're looking to start this video, you got to know people in the industry. And their doors aren't always going to be just wide open waiting on you because they're busy. They're busy doing their own thing. Okay? And many of the skills that you learn in these groups are things like the automated tracking system, ATS. When you're applying for these jobs online, they've got screening software that's screening people out. You got to know that. Connecting with recruiters, understanding the business landscape, like things like SCORE and all that. You've got to understand that. Number 9 is you've got to master the art of no. Master the art of no. Okay? In sales, right? And everything it relates back to sales. This whole world, everything you're selling something. Okay? Master the art of no. In sales, good salespeople, men and women, all know that they typically get X amount of no's before they get to a yes. And I spoke on this on a different subject last week. So they get excited about no's because they know that if it takes 7 no's to get to a yes, then I need to get as many no's out the way. So if I get that first no, boom, I only need 6 more. Second no, I only need 5 more. Third no, I only need 3 more. Fourth no, I only need 2 more. Fifth no, I only need 1 more, and on going till I get to my yes. That's the premise. You got to master that art of no. So as you're applying online, you're doing the different things. That none of this is foolproof. It doesn't mean that you're going to do these things and all of a sudden, eureka, everybody's going to jump up. No. So you've got to master, on your business team, the art of no. And you've got to master it for yourself as you're managing things within yourself. You've got to be able to say no. You can't be everything to everybody. And yes, you're going to piss some people off. You're going to disappoint some people. People are going to talk about you. People are going to drug your name. People you don't even know. People will hear your name and make up stuff about you. All this kind of thing's going to happen. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You got to master the art of no. People don't like that. People don't like rejection. People don't like the embarrassment that they get or perceive of it. But you got to be able to say no when things are presented to, including sometimes a job offer. Sometimes a business proposition, you got to say no. If it doesn't fit, going back to number 7, your why. What motivates you? Don't just, get into a business industry because you think it's easy. You think you're going to make a lot of money. Don't just accept the job just because, I'm behind a month or 2 on bills and they're coming to get everything, so I'm just going to accept whatever. That can't be your long-term plan. Just do what you have to do. I'm not suggesting don't, just sit around there and, just live off the street, but adjust your life. Make it fun. Everybody goes through down periods. And that's some of what going to those groups does, is you get around like-minded people who have been impacted that can pour into you and share with you their story and provide support, kind of give you a boost. But master that art of no. Understand it when you receive it, and understand it when you have to give it out. You've got to say no. Now, look, I'm not going to try and transform y'all into monsters where y'all go say no to every damn thing. Jim Rohn said no. No, but you master that art of no on either side of it. It's going to help you out, I promise. Number 10, and here's something that you're going to have to challenge yourselves on. And that's for all of us, myself included. You got to be positive and you got to be confident. Like I mentioned to start this podcast, going through the job search function sucks. It sucks. It is not easy. It's not easy on your mental condition. It's not easily emotionally. It's not easy for anything. No one enjoys it. Transitioning from one business industry to another is not always the most enjoyable thing. It may present some excitement, but it's not the most enjoyable thing. Any kind of change can be tough. What I found with people sometimes when they've been out of work and things like that is they allow their negativity, their pains, their shortcomings and things like that. Some people are bad about beating up on themselves. You've got to stop that. You've got to stop that. You got to stop blaming yourself for being fired. And you may have been dead wrong. You may have done something at the job place that resulted in you being fired. Learn from that. You may have been laid off multiple times or gone through multiple company reorganizations, and you're trying to figure out why does the hell this keep happening to me, and But you've got to remain confident and you've got to remain positive, y'all. Because you've got to give up. The reason being is not just for yourself, but you've got to give up that kind of energy. When you get in an interview or you're meeting with potential partners or you're looking at a business, you've got to bring on the type of energy that is going to give off positivity. Because if you're constantly talking negative to yourself, that comes out some sort of way in the face-to-face conversation. Because there's going to be some question, there's going to be some mannerism that's going to give off that energy. You want your energy to precede you. When you walk in the door, you want people to feel the positivity. Even if you felt like Jack Sugar Honey Iced Tea for the last several weeks or several months or maybe even years for some people. It's difficult to do. But you've got to do it, man. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. So you got to practice it. Practice on, your posture and the way you project your voice. And you got to smile some. Because every opportunity is an opportunity. And going back to the no's, right? Even if you get a no, follow up. Because then you're building relationships. It's not just about a job search. It's not just about transitioning your business. You've got to you're always building relationships and you're always selling. So you've got to do that, y'all. You've got to do that. And if you're not, then your job search can be elongated and your transition within your business is going to be, it could take you a long time just sitting there, punching away online. Susan Day said, it was years for me and now I'm working on that stuff. Yeah. And see, that's an example right there. Thank you, Susan Day. Susan said it was years for her. She was in their job search can you imagine being in a job search for years? Years. And there's so much age discrimination and all that. One of the challenges with LinkedIn is going to be inherent age discrimination. Why? Because they see your profile pic. So how are you going to know that they're not looking at your LinkedIn profile and already making guesstimates to your age? And stop putting your years on your LinkedIn too. Don't put that you graduated in 1971. They know you're not a millennial, right? So save putting on your dates and all that kind of thing. But like Susan said, sometimes it can be years, and that can be really trying on your psyche, on your motivation, on your positivity. I get that. But that recruiter, that new business partner, that new business opportunity is not going to come by you being negative. It's not going to come that way. Susan says so she's volunteering to keep doing something. And that's a great way to do many of the things that I've talked about today in my top 10. Building relationships, getting people connected to your experience, following up. And volunteer will help you with that last point of being positive and remaining confident. You got to have human interaction. You can't just sit at home and pout and fire away resumes and watch YouTube videos and all. You've got to get active. You've got to be active, and you've got to connect with people. Don't be afraid to connect with people. Don't be afraid to network. Challenge yourself to network outside. If you always hang out in certain areas of town or certain type of people, go to the other side of town. Don't worry about them judging you and all this kind of thing. Walk into networking meetings like they should expect you there. Not like, don't look out of place and all that. Walk in, walk up, right up to somebody, look them in the eye, shake their hand. I'm fill in the blank. Make them think like, who the hell is that? How come I don't know them? That's how you go in with the confidence and the positivity. When you exude that, it just attracts people. It's that law of attraction that everybody talks about. So those are my top 10. Susan says helping others is a great confidence booster. Yes, it is, Susan. I agree. And that's part of how you create 2-lane roads in your relationships, is helping others. Even in the midst of your job, that's one of the toughest things for human beings to do, is to help others when they need help themselves. And we all need help to different levels. That's a tough thing to do. If you can challenge yourself to do that, to help somebody else, even if they exceed you. Ooh, that's really tough for people. Most people can't do that. They're only good as people that they can look eye level with. Character flaw of the human being. Only as good as people that they feel they're above. And however they judge or rate being above somebody else. As Susan mentioned, she's climbing up after being homeless. See, people go through all kinds of tough things, y'all, that you'll never know. You may not ever know looking at them or when you meet them. But you're not the only one. Get out of your own narcissistic, view of yourself. You're not the only one going through this. So I encourage you today, as you listen to this podcast, share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, share it with a few of your enemies. But that last point is critical, because you got to exude the type of positivity, the type of confidence. People don't want to be around negative, people. They don't want to be around Debbie Downers and people who got poor lookouts of the world and things like that. And it's not to be naive, but you have to be confident and you've got to be positive. So I hope that my top 10 helped you today on episode 61. Listen, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Share this podcast, again, with everybody. www.themybpodcast.com. If you happen to be on iTunes or Apple Podcast or Google or any of those places, Stitcher, leave a positive comment. That really helps with growing the scope of the show. Several projects that I'm working on that I'll need some of you guys' help. So if I can help with anything, if you've got a resume, if you're looking to connect, with people. I'm around a lot of industry people. I'm around a lot of people who make things happen, who make decisions. So email me your resume, Ron at themybpodcast.com. Ron at themybpodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Love to, if I could share any pointers or advice with you that I know. I'm not going to steer you wrong. If I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know. But I'd love to be able to help each and every one of you as much as I can. I'm your host, Champ Ron. This is the Minding Your Business podcast. Peace. Y'all have a great weekend. Remember to be positive in all that you do. Love on those and be loving. And when you exude the right kind of energy, it will come back to you. Different times for different people, but it will come and it will be on time. Y'all be great.